looks like this. It's actually kind of Facebook or Contacte for working in academia. So people have their profiles, write what they write what they do, they write what they are interested in, and they also put
social net, yes.
Hmm?
Social net.
Yeah, it's a social network, yes.
For academics.
And they quite often put PDFs of or texts of their papers.
This is free social network?
Yeah, it's totally free. You just have to register and you know, write your email, your name, your family name. You can put a photo, and you can also put your upload your articles or anything of this sort. This is, for example, a program of the conference, but they're like as you can see, there are sometimes quite strange articles, but you can actually also write what you're interested in, and then it will choose for you the papers you want, and you can also upload your own, and you'll have here, for example, the notifications whether, for example, someone was uploading the paper in which you're interested in, or if someone was checking your papers if you uploaded them, or your profile. So it can be very useful for you. Okay, the others are I won't show you them now. It's HNet. It's a mailing list. You actually subscribe to it, and they send you the information on the topic that you're interested in, like in some broad categories, like I don't know, history or something like this. But they're also giving you information on conferences and so on. So it's very useful.
Yeah.
And yes.
Automatic, рассылка автоматическая.
Yeah. Exactly. And the last one is also something like this. It's a German one. It's or maybe I'll show you that. And it's
culture.
Yeah, it's social and cultural history. It's actually the best, I think, the best historical website and network that exists at the moment, at least. And it's very slow, loading very slowly. So so maybe we'll get to this in a moment. Okay, so and of course, there's a lot of other places when you can look for it. Mm-hmm. And for example, at the academia, it's quite easy to find, for example, also conference abstracts and paper proposals that are written by like actual scholars, like real living people doing their research, and they. And it's also useful because many of them are native speakers, so they can actually know what they're doing, or at least I hope so. Okay, so the title. So what it is about? So there are three basic things that the title is about. First is informing the reader about the content of the paper, which is quite obvious. So what's inside? Second is drawing attention and getting the reader interested in your research, which is usually not very often taught at the university, but 90% of the papers produced every year around the world in science and in arts is enormous, and 90% of them is never actually read. So you have 9 of 10 papers won't have a single reader, apart of the people that published it. So drawing attention and getting the reader interested is very important, because if he has like tons of articles coming every day, he will just you have to attract him to your paper, so he reads exactly this one and not the other one. Okay. And also allowing scholars for scholars to find your papers. So it's partly both previous ones. I mean that first the title tells what it's about, and the other one is that it draws attention of the person looking for something on the topic. So what should we actually think about when we are choosing a title? And it's not only about English speaking, but academic world, but generally. First, the title should be clear, so the reader will understand what the paper is about. The second one is it should be interesting, so making sure that the reader will not fall asleep when the paper is read. I mean, when the title is read, actually, because there are some titles that are so boring that you really can fall asleep just reading the title. And connected with both of them is it should not be too long, because if the title is too long, it's not interesting usually. Mm-hmm. I mean, it's like in a social network, if someone writes something on like pages, then usually don't have time to read it, so you won't read it at all. And then it usually means that the author cannot express himself clearly and shortly, which is a very bad thing. And it should be honest. So the title shouldn't pretend that in the article there is something more than there actually is. So if a person writes an article on, let's say, 10 pages, it usually and claims that that's the article that will explain like all human history, for example, or the sense of life, then it's just dishonest. Because firstly, when you read it, you don't know what's inside, because meaning of life, what's in this paper, and so it should be honest and do not claim more than is inside, but at the same time it shouldn't be too modest. So if you think you solve some problem, just say it. I mean, that's the good rule. And yeah, different approaches to the titles. And you have two titles. One which I personally, because it's always about how I think personally, is a good one and one is the bad one. Which title would you think sounds more academical?
More academic?
Yeah.
the second.
Okay, and which one would you actually, which says more clearly what is inside?
First, is first concrete.
It's more concrete, okay.
More concrete.
And which one would you rather read? No, I'm not giving you any, hints what I prefer or what. Not at least now. Just, first impression. Which one? You have 2 books.
Okay.
Which one would you choose?
No, I won't read the first book because it's concrete, but
Yeah.
second book, I don't know and I don't understand what about. it.
Okay. I'll be honest. I had the other impression. You know why? Because here, what's the second book can be about? I mean, what elements does it have?
Culture, history.
It's cultural history. It's intellectual history as well.
But
And-
what age?
Price revolution. What's
Price revolution.
Yeah.
When?
It's economic history.
no? But which period? No, it's
Period.
intellectual history. Yeah. Which period? Price revolution.
Ah, it's
16,
17.
17. Yeah. So I actually have to say I like the title more because it gives you. We'll get to how it's constructed in a moment, but the first one, the problem with this, first it's long. It's really long title, with a lot of some and
Yes, the
Yeah.
word is some.
yeah. What's inside some antecedents?
Antecedents, I don't know. What.
Antecedents is like
Perspective.
something before, like something before some event.
Okay.
Concrete.
Yeah, what can be inside? I mean, what's the author deals with? I mean, okay, we have Federation of Southern Slavs. We have the period,
Yes.
but if we would ask what's inside this, like words, like some
Some
antecedents, what's antecedents, when are these antecedents, what it refers to? I mean, are the antecedents after the Second World War or the formation of Federation of Southern Slavs?
Okay, understand.
Yeah. So the problem with this, it's like it sounds more concrete, but it doesn't tell you what's inside at some point, because it's quite common. The author of the article on the left is Polish. It's quite common for people coming from Poland, Russia, and so on to use the style that they use for in their own language,
Okay.
because I'm quite sure that during your baccalaureate you've read an article that, or you encountered it at least, the article that was called Niektóre osobienności ciewoto i ciewoto, da?
Mhm.
Niektóre osobienności Wołowki w Kamie w XVI wieku. No, jakby, and this sum is actually comes from here, but in English it means nothing. I mean, it's considered quite bad that you use something like, especially in the title.
Okay.
Except if you're dealing with actually, for example, a term that's called something. I mean, there's a book on a history of something, but okay. And I think actually these are, to my mind, kind of good titles in English. That these are actual articles. I mean, do you see a pattern that's quite very common in English academia? How the title is constructed?
At first, describe, I don't know, описывается.
Yeah, describe.
The event, then двоеточие,
Yeah,
more the aim of research.
Yeah, I would put it differently, but yeah, but that's the rule actually. That you have at the beginning something, then you usually have there's the title, and there's we can call it a subtitle in some ways, which actually goes further. And how it works. I mean, for example, this is the very common structure of a title. That the first part is actually has two functions. First, it's drawing attention to the paper. It should be this part should be really interesting. And the second part, and the first part also has to usually gives an idea of or some term that will be very important for your analysis. So, for example, this book is about how people were dealing intellectually with price revolution. So how they were thinking about it all, and the most important thing in this was the idea of profit. Yeah. So that's why the profit, so the crucial term or like some crucial idea, crucial like sama ważna, sama taka, da, is in the first part, and it's usually it should be also quite interesting. I mean, if we go back here, I mean, Angels in Tobolsk is quite interesting topic, I think.
Michał, what is the Mosquito Empire?
Mosquito, da. Imperia Moskitów na samym to dziele, komarów. But that's...
Это что за событие просто?
No, it's...
What about?
Yeah, it's a book about how environment, especially mosquitoes and all the sickness they carried with them, especially malaria, influenced the geopolitics of Caribbean Sea, and it actually the author explains, for example, why that mosquitoes had a large part in the War of American Independence. And he's doing this really good. I mean, because the army fell sick, and the British army and the locals who were immune to malaria were suddenly had the advantage in numbers. And it's a very interesting book and really good written. I mean, I can send it to you. I have this a copy, and it's something that's called environmental history, which is like kind of new trend and really important now in the US and in Great Britain. Okay, and the second part is actually giving more about how should we understand it, what about the object of the study and the context. So here we have like price revolution is the object of the study to some extent, and and price and intellectual work of the people dealing with price revolution is the subject and the context of this. And how does it work with in real world? Because now we have only names. For example, I'll give this Angels article as an example. It's a good one. That's the map of Tobolsk done by, I think, Semen Miezovda.
Angels in Tobolsk.
Angels in Tobolsk. Yeah, it's work by Valerie Kittelson from Michigan, and that's the map she's of Miezov that she's analyzing, along with the text, because Miezov describes this the map of Tobolsk and the plan of Tobolsk as an angel. That he describes what building is which leg and so on. And the problem is it doesn't fit. I mean, that's, her argumentation is like, well, Remezov described his own map as an angel, like that we have an angel here, but the way he describes it makes it like something like this or like this. So that's why the angels in Tobolsk. And
interesting idea.
yeah, and the other part was, as you can see, celestial topography. So niebiesna topografia and visionary administration, late Muscovite Siberia. Yeah. So what? And she explained. So she explained what she's actually dealing with in the second part. That she's trying to understand how a good cartographer could describe something that's his own work in terms that didn't fit. And she claims that the way he understood space was through the idea of connection between the state,
people and God.
the state and God. Yeah, exactly. That and only then it makes sense. So, but the title tells us what's inside to some extent, right?
Yes.
And it's as you can see, it's quite short. I mean,
Interested.
yeah, and interesting. I mean, I haven't been to Tobolsk. I don't know if there are any angels there, but okay. So there will be one. That's first part of the homework. So take your topic. It can be your MA dissertation topic. So, for example, the topics you have for your work, and try to make a good title in English for this,
Okay.
or for some part of it. So that's the first thing. Second, and we'll get to the part 2 of the homework in a moment. So the second thing is actually an abstract and a paper proposal. Some people actually say that abstract.
Homework, no?
This?
This.
No. At the end, the second. Okay. That they're writing and that there is a difference between the abstract. We all know what's an abstract, right? It's the like shortened version of the paper proposal of the article, and a paper proposal, which is exactly something that, for example, we just sent to the conferences, or there is some, for example, edited book edited by someone, and they are looking for people that will write parts of it for the exactly for this book.
Part of your research in conference.
No, it's
paper proposal.
Yeah. And why write an abstract and paper proposal? Because they want us to. I mean, that's the simplest thing. That you have to submit a paper proposal to go to a conference, and quite often you should write an abstract of the article that you're writing and sending somewhere. So those two things are really are important, and when you will be writing for English journals, you will have to or going to the conference, you will have to do this. And some people have really big problems with this. So,
What is it writing an abstract?
writing an abstract, it's
No.
abstract. It's like in
Main
many articles.
Main idea of what? Writing abstract.
Main idea of writing an abstract is because an abstract is this shortened version of the article that you usually put in the together with an article in the journal usually. I think we can actually have some.
Аннотация, да?
Да. По-моему, да, я не знаю. Не уверен, но... В вестнику нет. Абстракта.
Это аннотация в начале статьи есть.
Да, аннотация, да. Да. И в начале... Именно так. And they usually ask you to write it by yourself.
Okay.
Yeah, so so there is a small difference in writing, but it's not that important, so we discuss it. I mean, you write one and the other usually in the same way. You just have to say, what are you doing? Why are you doing this? And why is that? Why is your point of view important? And
What? Why? Why important?
the
Free. Why?
yes, exactly. And you usually have to think to whom you address it, because of course to the reader, which is for a journal usually another historian and the editor of the journal, or the person organizing the conference. So these three people, and you should think about them as people. So as people that don't have time, that do their duties, but they don't have like very much time to sit and think about what you have in mind. So you should respect them and respect their time. So and that actually really works. And what do you want to include in the abstract? And that's very important, because
What we want?
what we want to because it actually means what do we want to say in the abstract and in the and later in the paper. And what do we want to emphasize, podчеркнуть, and how we should do this as well. So there are some basic rules. First rule is
It's rule for abstract writing or propose?
both.
Both.
Yeah, I mean, because they're not very different. I mean, the ways you write them. Okay, the second point we told, respect your reader, and that's quite important. First thing is that you have to adjust to the rules set by the committee. Usually you don't have usually, for example, if there is a conference organized, they send you the guidelines. I'll show you in a moment.
Maybe one paper
Yeah,
propose.
yeah. I'll show you in a moment. Yeah. For example, no, not this. Foreseeable. It's a better one. Okay. So they firstly they now I'm just trying to make it bigger so you can see better. Okay, so you have usually the guidelines sent by the organizers. So abstracts should not be more than 400 words. For panel, okay, it's età dla sekcji. But also an abstract from the
Proposals for panel, that's 300.
yeah, but it's for the papers for the section, for a very concrete section. For example, if a group of people is organizing a section together, then it's they should be like less, but the more should be stressed the section as a whole, because later you should. But also an abstract for up to 400 words for the general theme of the panel. I don't know why it's like why the spaces were disappeared, but okay. Yeah. It also says that, for example, yeah, all abstracts must clearly define. So they want us to include some elements. The objective of the contribution, which is why are you writing to us?
0?
Yeah.
Yes.
I just two or more sources on which the contribution is built. So if you so you just have to say what sources you have used for this. The innovative character of the contribution. So again, why are you writing to us? But what new do you want to say? So why we should invite you if you don't have anything interesting to say or anything new? So here, if you have some of this information, you should just listen to the people in charge. Okay, so first we have covered. Focus on important elements and on the paper. Because we should always remember that what we are proposing is not all our research, but the paper we want to write, we are going to present for the conference, or the article we are going to write. So we should focus on this, and not, for example, some people actually write how much time they have spent in the library. I mean, the answer from the point of view of the organizer is no one cares. And so what you're proposing is the paper. It's not your physical work, so that should be remembered. And some elements that you want to stress and you think they will be interesting for the organizers.
Michał, but what I think in that what the elements in my in my статья
in paper.
are important.
It depends first of what you think is important, what you think is new, and and how does it fit the the conference or the art or the journal you are applying to. So we'll get to this in the moment. But it's usual. You have to think about that. You have about what you think. I mean, what problems have you solved, or what answers have you given, and what will be interesting for the of your work will be interesting for the reader. Pay attention to the language. It's not like this that the English are grammar Nazis or anything like this. I mean, in the English, everyone speaks English. So I mean, in most of the academia, I mean, most of the people who are writing texts in English are not English. So there is not, you know, it doesn't have to be perfect. It should be clear, understandable, and that's enough. And to the visual reception of the paper, of the abstract. We'll get to this in the moment, but it's usually many people do not care about how their abstract, if it's written in Word, and if it's a Word file, how does it look like? And that's also quite important. And adjust your paper to the topic indicated by the organizers. So it means that if you're going for a conference on if you have a conference on, I don't know, Soviet history, you don't, or for example, okay, we have a conference on Stalin. Do not submit a paper that's on Trotsky unless it's connected with Stalin. I mean, of course, if you're writing on something like something bigger, because usually the conference papers are part of your research, you can fit your you can stress some points that will be more connected with. So they will be more connected with the conference paper if you want to go there. So to give an example, okay, we have the paper, for example, on Russia in World War I, and someone is working on Finnish local history in the late 20th century. It doesn't mean that he cannot go to this conference, but he should present a paper and a proposal that will stress connection between his work and the topic of the conference. So we can, for example, like work on responses to military mobilization in Finnish villages during the World War I, right?
Right.
And
what is the stress connection?
Stress connection, окей. Подчеркнуть просто как бы связь. And make a point. Это очень банально, просто надо сказать, что я хочу сказать именно, что я what I'm proposing, why I'm proposing this, why it's important. So that should be the most important thing in your work, in your paper proposal, and in your work as well. So abstract paper do nots. So what one should what one should not do under any circumstances, it's to focus too much on the sources, because many people think that if they will present all the sources that they have, if they describe all things that are important for from the sources, they will impress the committee, and you've read so much, we're taking you. No, it doesn't work that way. It's so you don't have to fetishize the sources. So, you should write on generally on what basis are you writing, but it shouldn't be more than one sentence, unless the source is your topic. I mean, if someone is working on some manuscript, he will say what's peculiar in this manuscript, but that's quite important. Then it's not only the source, but also the topic. Do not focus too much on explaining the context. That's that's also very often encountered. That people want to explain what happened, in what context, when, why, and in the end they don't come to what they want to write themselves. So, of course, some context is important for the author for the reader to understand what the paper will be about, but it shouldn't be too much. Because you have always remember the abstract or the paper proposal is usually 150 to 400 words. So it's not very much. I mean, this presentation is more. Do not focus on the previous research too much.
And what is Russian for dwell?
Dwell? На самом деле это имеет много значений. В этом контексте это означает тоже фокус. Сфокусироваться. Да. Потому что dwell обычно может тоже означать, например, жить где-нибудь. Но в этом контексте dwell это означает как бы не, чтобы просто не застрять. Да. So do not dwell on the previous research too much. So as the same, you don't have to explain too much the context of the events that you're describing, but you also don't have to describe the research context. So, you know, if someone is working on like 17th century Russia, he doesn't have to start with Karamzin and Solovyov. Because then, you know, they keep writing, and in the end you don't have your argument, only arguments of the people that already presented their papers and even published their books. So you have to say in current research what's your point of departure, very shortly, and what's the problem? I mean, what the current historiography gets wrong. Because it should give something wrong, because otherwise what's the point of writing the paper? Do not dwell on research process as such. That's what I was writing about. Do not tell how much you're spending your time on at work. Do not say how many archives you visited, because it's not that important for the reader. And it's not part of the paper. It's the basis of the paper, but it's not the point. Do not copy-paste your introduction conclusion. These things happens. If someone has a ready article, for example, and finds a conference that he wants to, or a journal that he wants to present his paper, and then he just thinks that, well, abstract is about well, the same as the article, so we can just do Ctrl+C, Ctrl+V, and we have the abstract. No, it doesn't work that way. So that's very important, and it's one of the worst things one can do. Do not quote. It's pragmatic thing. That you have 250 50 words. You can spend them whether on writing what you want to say, or on writing something that someone has already said, which is not very good strategy. So if there is some great quote that states your point, for example, that there is some gap or there is something very interesting, like very short 4 or 5 words, thing that summarizes the problem, then you can quote, but not more. And you have to remember that if you want to present something of this, there is place for this when your paper is accepted. So, so you can do this in the paper. So what to do? Exactly. Focus on your paper. Focus on what you're going to present yourself and why and how. State the problem, which is something that we've been talking about also when we had this meeting on the. So stating the problem. Explain shortly the problem. So what's the problem and why is it the problem? Because if the problem is unconvincing, then the paper won't be accepted. About material and method, I've said that you don't have to do this and you shouldn't do this too much. But you should say what you will be using. I mean, very shortly you can say like, well, on the basis of the materials from the archive of I don't know, of Kungur, for example, I will argue that. That's enough. You shouldn't have. You don't have to say more. You just said exactly that you have the sources which are from the archives of Kungur. So that's it shouldn't be more usually. And the same with methods. You don't have to explain like details of, for example, if you do like economic history, you don't have to explain everything, how you do, what you do, and why you do this. You just say okay, I'm using this method. Enough. And exactly, what's new? That's the question that's very important, and everyone will be asking exactly this. Okay, so how the paper should look like? Because we are talking about what should be inside, but there's also another thing that's that the paper proposals are still usually sent by as attachments to the email. So usually in Word file, in doc, right?
Right.
Okay, so and this actually imposes some requirements which are not stated in the conference, but are part of etiquette. Like it should not be more than 1 page. and certainly it shouldn't be more than the indicated length in the call for papers. So
Excuse me, what's it Russian for центр?
certainly, точно. And it means that in this case that if they say if the organizers say it should be not more than 400 words, it means that it shouldn't be more than 400 words. So, and because sometimes of course it can happen that can be 401, 402 or so, something like this, but it shouldn't be. Because it just, if they ask something, then it's a sign of respect that you agree with the terms, and if not, they can get angry. Title at the top in bold, so it should be like, then name and academic affiliation, which means what's your name and where do you study, work, etc. Also in the center. And then the body of the text, which is what the actual part of a paper proposal, which should be adjusted from both sides. So it should be like okay, I'll show you in a moment. It should be 11 or 12-point font. Like also the font should be like basic one, like I don't know, Garamond Times New Roman and things like this. All this, you know, fancy fonts don't work, and should be 1.5 space between the lines. And there should be no headings in the body, which means that the text.
Or Russian headings.
Headings. Как тут? Ну не просто не надо делить на секции.
Ну тоже заголовки.
Заголовки, да, без заголовок. Because you know, it's like 250 pages. I mean, if you make sections of the text that's 250 pages, I mean, it looks ridiculous. Okay, so I'll show you one such case of the okay, slowly. Okay, and so actually we're almost done. I mean, that's the last thing and the homework. And it's quite, the homework is quite easy. I mean, you have to write an abstract, or rather a paper proposal. So how you will do this? You will find a conference on something connected to your topic on the internet. I mean, there's a lot of conferences going every day around the world. I have to say that, for example, at my email in Florence, usually there is every day 40 calls for papers. Every day. So you can imagine how many conferences are in the world on everything. Like 40. I can tell you that I got a conference about the conference proposal for about reconceptualization of the audio tracks in television. And there was a whole conference on, you know, the way theoreticians think about what's sound in TV. Yeah. And so there's a lot of things you can find on the internet. all conferences. So I want you to find one conference, one that fits your interest, more or less. You have to think about your title, which will fit into the conference framework. So you have to adjust to the conference title and the topic. See what are the rules for the
Abstract.
for the abstract in the call for papers, and write an abstract according to those rules and send it to me by Tuesday with the information which conference have you chosen. By Tuesday, please, because I won't have time to check all the. I will correct them. Also in respect to the language, so it will be also advantageous to you. And I will and we'll discuss them at the next meeting. Okay?
Okay.
Okay. Thanks a lot.
Thanks.
Спасибо.
Первая домашняя работа. Первая домашняя работа.
Это связано с этим на самом-то деле.
Можно посмотреть?
Тему надо придумать.
Да. Тему.